Today we're going to be looking at a video which is published by a K-12 teacher who is opposed to schools promoting positive activities like family reading to kids because that's what she believes white people do. It's very interesting how Drag Kids Story Hour reading to children is not something that she believes white people do. That for some reason manages to escape scrutiny. But as we get to see here by Myth-Inform, he says something that it's very difficult to disagree with. Only actual racists they can say things like this. Woke is a social acceptable racism. I mean, when you look at it and you see this level of stereotyping and this level of prejudice where you believe that an action that almost every single human being on the planet can perform, regardless of ethnicity or race, which is to read something to their children, and you're saying that no, that's a white people thing. Yeah, I would say it's racist as fuck. Like, I am willing to bet that if I were to go right now into a predominant black area in the United States and I would ask people, like random people from the streets, like, do you think only white people read the stories to their kids? I have a feeling they would be a little bit taken aback. I remember that there was a similar video where a person went to a campus, a liberal campus, and he was asking the students there, like, do you think it's racist to require ID? And they were like, yeah, because minorities, like, don't know how to get one or can't afford one. And then the same person, the same interviewer, went into a predominantly black neighborhood, and he was asking people there, and they were like, what are you talking about? Like, of course we know how to get one. It's like, yeah, it's cheap. Like, we can get it. I mean, we have smartphones. Like, of course we have ID. So it just goes to show the complete disconnect between what appears to be liberals and the actual demographics that they claim to represent. In my previous video today, I talked about dating, and there was like this guy gathering data. And what was fascinating going to his account, experiencing the exact same thing that we see here, is that there were a lot of women claiming that they like to do X. And the data that he gathered also showed that women like to do X. But when you go into the comment section and you scroll past the women that say they like to do X, you eventually find a liberal guy that is ideologically possessed and goes like, no, actually, women hate X. And it's like, why? Because that's what your university professor said, right? And you don't have eyes, you don't have ears, you can't look around and see what things are for yourself. You gotta believe what is the correct thing that's coming from the university, even when reality contradicts it. Why do you think universities require safe spaces, by the way? Why do you think universities have like all these speech policies and they cannot allow people to talk for themselves? If they seclude themselves into the bubble, how can they experience reality? If they create an imaginary world where people are only allowed to say a couple of things, when they actually go into the real world where there's other ideas and people saying other things, how do you think they can cope? They can't. Like, universities in the United States right now, especially the grievance studies, are completely disconnected from reality. If you have individuals like this that legitimately believes that reading stories to your kids is something that white people do. My parents never read me stories, by the way, right? So I guess like they were whiting improperly. I'm curious like what this lady has to say. But again, it's the idea, identity politics, is the idea that they have completely figured out the human spirit, right? So like, it's kind of, imagine if astrology was actually true, right? So you have like the Pisces, and then you have Aries, and you have like all the other, all the other spectrums, right? But they legitimately believe it's true. Like they believe that if Pisces says this and this and that, that a person that's born on that particular month and is under the Pisces sign, and they must actually behave that way. Otherwise, it's not a problem with their assessment and their ideology. It's the problem with that person. Like, he's not behaving like a Pisces. This is literally, but it's applied to race. So let's listen to this lady.
Article shows that with evaded racism, the blame is usually placed on students of color and families for academic struggles because of their cultural practices or lifestyle or socioeconomic status. Instead of looking at,
I mean, are you actually going to disagree the fact that if a person has money and sends their kid to a private school, or has money and manages to buy a professor that's like a tutor in order to help that student where they don't really are you going to say that that person doesn't have an advantage over someone that's incredibly poor and has to have two jobs and doesn't have a lot of time to dedicate to that teacher to that student? How on earth can you make the claim that wealth doesn't factor in why a person can be better at school than another? I mean, it's not fucking rocket science. Imagine this, right? Like, you have one parent that manages to earn a lot of money, works 8 hours per day, right? He's married. The wife also does the same thing. So they're wealthy, both of them. They can afford to spend time with the children. They can afford to hire a tutor for the kids. They can afford to send the kid out of private school, right? Now, let's assume another situation where you have a child that has a single mother and she needs to get two jobs in order to be able to feed for the kids that she has. And she's at work most of the time, doesn't have that much luxury to spend time with the kids. Do you honestly think that those kids are not going to do poorly at school because of this? I mean, there were times when I was skipping schools, and my parents had to step in and give me a correction. Like, if my parents didn't do that, I don't think I would have ended up where I am today. Like, this is not even debatable. I don't give a shit about what statistics you come up with or what. No. Right? Now, her solution, of course, is to blame society. Right. So, when you blame society, it means that you can't actually put the blame on a person. And it's something that can't really be fixed or quantified. Like, if you have a series of policies, we can't see how effective they are. We can only guess that, well, maybe they have been effective, but like there's more work to be done type of argument. And the reason I'm even bringing this up is that last year in Baltimore, the city schools received a record of $1.6 billion and an additional $800 million in COVID funds. And apparently 0 students tested proficient in math in 40% of the schools. Right? Like this is ridiculous. When can we say that teachers are the problem in this situation? Because all these teachers, they're progressive. Like, all these teachers, I'm willing to bet they support the lady from the previous video. All these teachers, they teach anti-racism and shit. And they probably do a very good job at teaching the LGBTs. But for some fucking reason, none of the students can do math. Does it happen in other countries, by the way? Does it happen in... Maybe, I'm just saying, I don't know. Like, but maybe... Instead of assuming that the teachers are dumb or they don't know what they're doing or they're incompetent, maybe this is malice. Like, at what point can you say that maybe this is by design to keep people stupid? Can I be contradicted with this? Like, can I be shown, like, why is my opinion not the correct one? Like, again, you have 0 students proficient in math in almost half of the school. Like, this is insane. Like, this is beyond belief. I was proficient in math. I think like when I was like 6th grade, I was doing trigonometry, and by 8th grade, I was doing hyper complex numbers and stuff. Like, there is no excuse for this, none whatsoever. So again, how can you justify this amount of funding? How can you justify receiving so much cash and having these poor results? Now you can say, well, maybe it's not the teachers that are responsible. Maybe it's something in society, that like the families are... No, we can't say that. That is racism. So therefore, the only logical explanation is like, okay, well... So if we agree with the previous lady, you can't blame socioeconomic factors. You can't blame culture or the families or what's happening at home. It's society, and society are the teachers. Like, it's their responsibility. So the teachers have failed. Why aren't they getting fired then? Why aren't they getting replaced? Why isn't the curriculum being reviewed? It's society. I mean, I find it absolutely fascinating how people like the first teacher can claim that they are the problem and yet somehow can also claim at the same time that they must be the solution. There was one thing that happened which amused me the most during Trump's presidency. There was a university, I think Preston. Yeah, Preston University came out and said that our university has been racist for like the last 20 years or some shit. So, okay, the government filed an investigation. It's like, well, you're admitting of a crime. Like, you're not allowed to be racist. You're not allowed to be discriminatory, especially not based on race. And we have like civil rights and shit. And the same dean that was at the university, well, he was there for a couple of decades. So it's like, well, if that's the case, like if you're admitting for a crime, well, who was responsible for it? Like, we need to act right, but they don't want to find like names that are accountable. They want to claim, oh, the problem. Oh, well, this vague thing is causing it. It's the weather. It's God. It's Satan. It's no, like, the institutions are ran by human beings. When a problem like this happens, when 40% of students aren't proficient in math at any school, then an investigation is in order so that the people who are responsible should be. I mean, I understand from the Democrats' point of view, especially listening to more recent politicians, they're suggesting that the parents aren't responsible for educating the children, is the state. Okay, then if it's the state, let's see who resigns for this abomination. The mayor. I mean, the mayor can resign, right? Like, well, the governor, go up the chain. Go up the chain until you find the person responsible and hold them responsible. If this is the mentality that they want people to have, right? So the government educates students, not the parents. The parents' socioeconomic factors don't matter. The culture doesn't matter. Okay, fine. Like, we're narrowing it down until we're going to find out who's responsible and who needs to get sacked. Or we only fire people for racist jokes, huh? Is that the only thing that people get fired for nowadays? Being offensive? But being shit at your job, that doesn't get you fired? Very interesting. Let me know what you guys think, though. And as usual, I will see you in the comment section. Take care.